Have you ever felt torn between, the efficiency, the quickness of digital tools for note-taking, project management, and organization, and the kind of flow or even the tactile feel of using a pen or paper? In this video, I want to show you how I use both and how I blend them together and why that works. And this isn't really about rules. This is about finding what works for you so that you get the best results and actually enjoy and get the benefits out of it. I'm Adam with the Productivity Academy, and as mentioned, I want to share with you, what I would kind of call a hybrid system, using digital tools and using the good old pen and paper when needed, and how we can do that. So, the high-level reasons behind this are not super complicated, but I do believe in, simplification. We don't want to have 10 tools, but at the same time, no single tool really works for every single situation. Also, physical writing is known to improve recall and focus. There's a reason we write down our notes and rewrite them in our own words. There's so much research out there that, I'm just going to state it as a fact that writing down things has been proven again and again to really help us again in those areas of recall and focus. Also, digital tools have their place as well because they make organization, delegation, right? Sharing with your team, tracking so much easier. And it automates a lot of this stuff that would be incredibly tedious. If we were using sticky notes on a whiteboard or something instead of using tools like Trello or ClickUp, Asana, whatever it might be. So my personal experiences with this has been really good, where I take and kind of blend both of these together. And the idea being that I end up feeling a lot better and understanding my day better once I go through and review all of my digital tasks. Maybe that's my calendar. Maybe that's an actual to-do list, or in my life, yes, it's both of those things. It's not one or the other. But then going through and writing down by hand, okay, what are my actual top tasks today? And at a very high level, that's kind of how this works. But I want to go into a little bit more detail about how I'm using these. And I'll start with digital tools and then move into analog or handwriting, a little bit of the flow and kind of what's working for me, and kind of go from there and point out some areas where this might work really well for you. So I'm using digital tools daily, hourly, and for a lot of it, for capturing tasks, projects, things like that, I'm right now running with ClickUp because I have a small team and I want a project management system. It works well for that, and it works good enough as, to-dos, reminders, and tracking ideas, things like that. I would say that there's better tools if you are working by yourself, perhaps Todoist, or again, just go find your favorite digital tool out there. Use that, and it's a little bit more flexible if you're working by yourself. You could, use Roam Research and to-dos and queries and, make that system work for you. But when I'm working with a team and I want to have collaboration and I want to have deadlines and tracking and things like that, I found that a project management system works, and then it's good enough in the other areas that I use it so that I don't have to have, again, many systems. All right. So that's what I'm doing. And I add those caveats because I don't think that it's going to be one size fits all. Nothing is. I think you need to play around and find out what works best for you. I've talked about this before, but process storage, a lot of my processes live in ClickUp. If they have to do with any sort of projects that go into ClickUp, the process is in ClickUp. But at times I will have rough kind of outlines of a process or an SOP, and that'll be where it's needed. A lot of times I'll use Roam just to really quickly get some ideas down. And it's not that that is the tool that makes it easier. It's that I use Roam a lot anyways. So going ahead and dumping stuff in there and having the hierarchy of the indentation can make it really easy to outline things. You could also use Notion. I use Notion for several things. You could use Google Docs. You could use whatever you want. But the reasons, again, using that is easy access. Searching is really easy, cutting, pasting, and collaborative, right? These would be a real pain in the butt to do if this was not digital. If we were trying to do this, I don't even know, you wouldn't even be able to do this analog, in the sense of, like, I don't know what you would do. You would have like a whiteboard again with Post-its and call people and update boards or something, it just wouldn't work. It's kind of silly to think we're just so enmeshed in this. But I think that with a team, a lot of this becomes absolutely necessary. And then going on from that, if you're working by yourself or when you are working on your own task, you can move a little bit more analog. So let's talk about that. Using a hand, writing, drawing, whatever that might be, one of the first things that comes to mind is brainstorming, thinking, just brain dump, getting stuff out. Journaling, sketching, I really enjoy doing that, and that can be a much more free-form way of doing things. And I do this sometimes digitally, which may seem kind of against what I'm saying here. But I think when I combine and I want to literally like kind of whiteboard things, there are great whiteboard tools, but for me, nothing goes beyond or gets better than drawing things out, literally connecting the dots, connecting ideas, and sometimes maybe sketching something out that needs it. It could be the flow, it could be, a diagram, whatever it is, but that helps me see the idea and identify gaps or just add on to things. And then I can go back to that over time. And then eventually that may get digitized, upload, I can take a picture, whatever needs doing. Another way that I do some analog things is daily focus. I mentioned this near the beginning of the video, but I write out my top tasks on paper. Okay, it helps keep me off of devices, but it also helps me narrow and focus things down. If I have 25 tasks, I had better figure out which ones are the most important, get those done, and then I can get to the lesser important, maybe admin tasks, or look at, hey, what can I delegate? What can I get off my plate? I think that the focus idea of this is incredibly important. And doing that, you can use a 3x5 index card. You can use your paper journal. You could use Post-it notes. Again, it's about what finding works for you. I like having a journal so that if I make notes, sometimes during the week, I'll have maybe an outline for an idea, had a task either I wasn't able to complete or I needed to make some notes on, and I can just go back and check that out. Generally, that's not going to go back any more than a couple of days, or else that's going to go into a bigger project, something digital. Another good aspect about using pen, paper, pencil, paper, whatever it might be, is that you don't need any tech. It's really low distraction, and it can be kind of lightweight in the literal sense, and also kind of metaphorically in the sense that, you can have a little bit of a notebook with you, and have that, and you don't need Wi-Fi. You don't need some special app that's offline. And so that can really come in handy depending on what your day-to-day looks like. My daily flow goes something like analog, digital, analog, and then sometimes back on all over the place after that. But the first three are kind of important to me. And what I will do is I have my notebook, whichever one I'm currently using, and I will keep that out. And in the morning, as stuff comes to me, but before I sit down to work, instead of, hopping on and getting into project management apps and stuff like that, I will just write down, oh, okay, that I thought of something important that I do need to do. I'll just put it down on the day's page. And that keeps me from, seeing stuff that's going to occupy my mind later. It gets it out of my brain. I'm not losing track of it. So that has a really good effect of keeping me focused and, reminded, but also it's out of my brain. Great. It's taken care of because I will look at that later. Okay. Then once I get started and I've taken care of my kind of personal block of work time, now I will be diving into, okay, let's do the kind of daily review, looking at the calendar, looking at ClickUp, other tools as needed. For any outstanding tasks, what projects need input or moving forward, whatever that is. That's a digital side of going through that, making sure that I've reviewed everything and know what's going on. And then I will go back to analog and prioritize, because now I know, okay, I got these projects I need to look at. Here's all the tasks that are awaiting me. What's important? What am I going to get done today? Write that stuff down, add that to the list. And that's where I'm also going to be reviewing. Hey, did I write down some stuff before I started working that needs doing? Is it actually important? Does that need to go anywhere? Does it go into the digital systems? I can deal with it then and there. And then again, as the day goes on, I don't have a strict rule for this, but I think that there's good ways to go about this. Obviously, anytime you can stay out of things like email is helpful and just being productive. So again, finding out what works for you. But I have to bounce back and forth between ClickUp and some other apps and things I use like Slack for communication, email, etc. But then going in and trying to get offline and reviewing notes, doing anything like that. And I think that, just finding again what works for you, but having a start of your day and having a plan for how that's going to work. Are you going to use a notebook? Are you going to use a 3x5 card? When are you going to use your digital tools first? Are you going to stay away from them for an hour or two, or do you start there and then have a time where you kind of break yourself free and go do something else? And just fleshing that out for yourself, I think, will be really helpful. There's a few things that are working, and I've mentioned a couple, but also things I've stopped doing. So on the stop doing, I don't try to force myself to carry any particular notebook. I've mentioned this in a more recent one, but I have a larger notebook I'm using right now because I found it in a stack of notebooks that I had written like 3 pages in this years ago and had never used it. And I was like, well, it's kind of wasteful. I'll just go ahead and start using it. Found that it's a little bit large for me. I actually don't enjoy carrying one around this big. But I was like, I'm going to finish using it. And that's helping me kind of figure out what I want, what I like, and what I enjoy. And over time, that's great. That helps me kind of narrow it down. But I also don't carry a like little tiny EDC notebook. I've had one of these. I thought it would be cool. And it was just too small to be practical. And, it was actually small enough that I would kind of lose it or forget it a lot of the time. And that's part of that process of just being like, maybe it's, this one's too small, this one's too big. And that's okay. That's part of the process. It's not that you get the notebook and then you're like, oh, I failed. I don't enjoy using it, so I can't use any notebooks. Like, no, don't look at it like that. Try something else, find out what works. And in that, I think you find the things that are going well is, just using a notebook and having that handy and having a couple areas where you use it. And by that, I mean, do you keep it at your desk, right? That's great. Do you bring it anywhere else in your home or office? Do you take it with you? Kind of identifying that. And for me, it's worked really well. I generally don't take it. If I'm going to go out of the house for a while, sometimes I'll literally take a picture of the task for the day. That way I don't need to take it with me, but I have a quick reminder if I need to go and look and say, oh, okay, right, those are the 3 things I need to be working on. I'll be doing that while I'm on the road or whatever it is I'm up to. So some tips for how to build your own hybrid system or how to think about this. I think that something that would be really helpful is to start with paper for thinking and brainstorming, and then digital for execution, especially when you're talking about a time frame longer than 1 day. If you have an idea for a website you want to build, or you're working on a project with a team that spans 3 months, then you definitely want to go digital. But it can be so helpful to plan things out on paper, a whiteboard, whatever that might be. Again, I think that having paper in the morning can be really good to help you stay focused, but realizing, yes, you need that digital input of you're probably using that for idea capture of some sort, tasks, inbound stuff, whatever you've got to do. And that goes both ways, that you may be writing your task down on the paper, but if you don't get it done, probably needs to go back into your digital unless you have like a bullet journal set up and something you're doing to move tasks forward each day. Not going to get into that, but just make sure that you have a system that works for you, and it does not have to be complicated. So from my point of view, I think that, going pen and paper can really help you focus. It gives you some clarity. The digital tools can really give you the structure. And again, automating those things that, would be tough on your own, whether it's a deadline, it's collaborative, it's reminders, but blending both, really helps you get kind of the best out of both. So, if you have a favorite setup, if you're all digital or all analog, I would love to hear about that. I think, most of us probably are somewhere in between. And I hope that by watching this video, listening to this, you've got some ideas on potentially how you could improve your setup, be a little bit more productive, and get more out of your systems. Thanks for watching. If you, again, have any comments, questions, leave them below. I'll get back to you.